Good morning, Rabbi.
Good
Good
morning,
morning,
Rabbi.
Alice. Good morning, David.
Morning, Sam.
Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, Liz. I was listening to, there's an 8-part series that Rabbi Foreman has about the revelation at Sinai. The first part of it is about chosenness, and he makes a connection between language at just before Sinai in Yisro, in the Exodus version, and the story of Yaakov and Esav and Yitzchak with the deception over the blessings. He shows many intertextual connections between the two, and speaks about them as two versions of the chosenness narrative. And then he extends the Yaakov and Esav one in two directions. He goes back to Avraham, and then he goes forward to Yaakov at the latter vision. And he shows how the Avraham, sorry, one second. Sorry, just gonna, okay. So he shows how when Hashem is speaking to Avram in Lech Lecha, he sort of sets up this notion that Avraham will be a source of bracha for all the nations of the world. That at Sinai, when he mentions the notion of chosenness, that it's meant again to be like a source of connection for the entire world, that the Jewish people will be like a conduit or connecting point between the entire world and God. And that he also at the latter vision, when he talks to Yaakov, those elements are present. But Yitzchak, he shows, when he gives the bracha that he thought was going to Esav, he sets up a different dynamic, which is that you will rule over your brother, and that the ultimate goal is not simply that you will be there as a kind of conduit for all the nations, but that you will rule over them. The kind of chosenness narrative that a lot of people put on the Jewish people when they claim that we are trying to take over the world for our own benefit. Anyways, it's spectacularly done. It's like that's just in the first 2 parts of it, the first 2 parts of it. So you don't have to listen to the whole 8 parts to get that. It's just in the first 2 parts. It's called a podcast, but it's, whatever. It's him. It's him together with this guy, Imu Shalev. Just mentioning.
Rabbi, what's the name of your podcast that you do with the other rabbi? I don't have it written down.
It's called 2 Rabbis and a Podcast.
Are you still doing it?
We are, except he's in Israel for 10 days. So we did one last week. We did not do one this Sunday We're not doing one next Sunday, but
So what is it, once a week?
it's supposed to be once a week. Yeah. I
Oh,
think there might be like 8 or 9 of them so far.
yeah, I forgot about it, what the name was.
That's a
Two
yeah.
rabbis and a
Becher.
podcast.
Yeah.
All
He's
right.
Rabbi Becher. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Rabbi.
You're welcome.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
I'm going to look it up and listen to Rabbi Foreman, but is he saying that that's because Yaakov did that? That's our tsuris?
No, I mean, he so far in those two, he's just setting it's Yitzchak. Not here, he's putting the blame on Yitzchak, not Yaakov.
Yeah, but
The,
the
but
blessing-
Yaakov, it gets switched at the latter vision. Yaakov doesn't carry that forward. He's suggesting that it gets corrected at the latter vision, and then from then on, it is how Jews understand it. There was the Yitzchak is like a temporary bump in the road. Now he doesn't go on to say so far. I don't know. I mean, he's in the next ones. He's he's still talking about the connection between that story of Yaakov and Esav and Revelation, but it doesn't seem like he's focusing as much on chosenness, but I'm sure he'll get back to that at some point. But yeah, so he calls it a distortion of Yitzchak's, and suggests that if you look after the latter vision, the next time is going to be the revelation at Sinai, and then there's going to be another moment at the very end of Moshe's life when he blesses the people, where there it's the emphasis is on the Jewish people's role in the larger picture, that we're meant to be a conduit, but that ultimately God's interest is in the entire world, and the Jewish people as a kind of conduit for the rest of the world. So even the term Mamleches Kohanim, a kingdom of priests, so he emphasizes the role of priests. Kohanim are conduits. They are there to enable a relationship between Israel and God. They're like agents of the Jewish people and of God, but are meant to be kind of enablers of a relationship. So by calling us a kingdom of priests, we're emphasizing it. But even a careful look at the language around the chosenness discussion before Sinai, and then when Moshe gives the blessing at the end, emphasize that role. Okay. So just
Guess who's going to be one of your attendees at the future Nachanash?
no way.
Yeah,
This
Sharon and
on
I
Wednesday.
I cannot come tomorrow because we're flying on
Okay.
that day. But the week after, we should
Awesome.
be able to do it. So we're coming
Awesome.
back to Chicago now for 6 months.
Awesome.
So just want to let you know
So-
you'll have someone to be with you at Nachanash.
To quote the Blues Brothers, we're getting the band back together.
That's cute. It's cute.
Okay. So I'm just going to read the rest of this mitzvah that we've been talking about, which is to keep your vows. The prohibition about violating this thing in the explanation of the related commandment is his saying he may not profane his word. And that the Hebrew for profane is Yachel, it's based on that word halal, to make your words empty or vacuous. The explanation comes, and he shall not make his word profane, meaning if he obligated himself something, he should fulfill it. And in the Gemara Shavuos, they said, those that say something is like an offering will transgress a negative commandment with them on account of he may not profane. Now, that is the actual technical language of a vow, of a neder, where you say, this is forbidden to me like a korban. That is the full language of a neder. Or if somebody would say, I'm making a neder to do such and such. So that's why it's saying like a korban. Will transgress a negative commandment with them on account of he may not profane. And in the Sifrei, which is the halachic medrash regarding this, they said he may not profane is telling that he transgresses on account of do not profane and on account of do not delay. Meaning, when he vowed a sacrifice and he didn't offer it, and 3 consecutive holidays passed by him, he's liable on account of it, on account of do not delay, and on account of do not profane. So there's some situations, and we had read this last week, there are some situations where you could violate 2 things, delaying and profaning. And likewise, with anything similar to a sacrifice, such as when he makes a vow that to temple maintenance fund or charity or to the synagogue, that which is similar to it. And if he transgressed and did what he forbade himself, he's last. So if he forbids something on himself, he is liable. If he said he's going to do something, then there's a time frame in which he is supposed to do it. And if he didn't do it, he violates that as well. Okay. Now, Mitzvah 158. He prohibited a priest from taking a zona. Now, a zona technically means a prostitute, but it doesn't. Here, it is not talking about actually engaging a prostitute for a one-time act of prostitution. That is forbidden for anybody to do. But this is, in other words, it's forbidden to have intimate relations with another woman, even if she's single, outside of marriage. But that's not what this is. This is, he's not allowed to marry somebody who was in the class of what is called a prostitute, a zona. Vu omru isha zona v'chalala lo yikachu v'kozman sheyavo lechai malchus. So this is what it means when it says that it's he shall not take a woman that is a zona or desecrated. And each time he has sexual relations with her, he's lashed. So the category of zona, according to this, it's really, the prostitute is representative of a larger category. It really means a woman who's had sexual relations with somebody who's forbidden for any Israelite to marry. So if a woman had relations with a mamzer, if a woman had intimate relations with a Gentile, she would then be forbidden for a Kohen to marry, even though she never married that person. Just the fact that she was intimate with them, even just one time, means that she's no longer available for him to marry afterwards. So, and this is something that affects Kohanim up until this day. So a Kohen is not allowed to marry a woman who had been intimate with a Gentile or a mamzer or somebody like that. So when a Kohen is dating, they may directly ask the woman if if she is able to be married to a Kohen, that's what they'll typically say. Are you able to marry a Kohen? And what he's asking is, were you ever divorced? That's not in this category, but were you ever divorced? Or did you ever have intimate relations with a Gentile? You're not going to just point blank ask a woman if she's ever had an intimate relation with a Gentile, but that's generally what they mean. And let's say there's somebody setting up two people and one of them's a Kohen. So the person setting up the person would have most likely vetted the woman to make sure that that she's still eligible to marry a Kohen.
What if it's
Yes.
not a Kohen, Rabbi? What if it's just an Amaritz guy?
No, a regular Israelite, no prohibition. No prohibition. Regular Israelite. There's no a regular Israelite can marry any Jewish woman as long as she's not a mamzeres, but which is a rare situation. Otherwise, he can marry any Jewish woman. But a Kohen has a much more restricted pool of halachically acceptable marriages. In the broadest picture, he can't marry a woman who is divorced. He can't marry a convert. He can't marry a woman in this category. So it is, especially if you have a Kohen who's on a second marriage. Let's say he's a widow or he himself got divorced. So and let's say he's in. So the likely pool of candidates for him is going to include a lot of women who've already been married, and he can't marry them. That's so. It becomes an issue. He can marry a widow, but he can't marry a divorcee. That's again not this. This one is specifically about a woman who's had relations with a Gentile. He prohibited a priest that he not marry a desecrated woman. That is saying that should not take a woman that is desecrated. Each time he has sexual relations with her, he's lashed. Here, what is a desecrated woman? It means that her parents are, for instance, her father was a Kohen and he married a divorcee. If her father is a Kohen and he married a divorcee, I'm pretty sure that's in this list. If she herself had relations, yeah, but that was in the other category. A halala, I'm pretty sure is that case. A halal is for sure that case. When you call a male a halal, it means that the most likely scenario is that his father was a Kohen and his mother had previously was divorced. So the status of a halal is that they are Kohen in name only. They no longer can perform the Kohen's responsibilities in the Beis HaMikdash. Nowadays, the main effect is that they don't go up to Duchen. They don't do Birkas Kohanim because they're no longer allowed to do the Kohen service. And then that's the end of the Kohen's line. So he has the Kohen gene because his father was a Kohen, but he's no longer halachically a Kohen. He's called a halal.
Is he allowed to eat truma?
I do not think so. No, I'm pretty sure he's not. Pretty sure he is not. Let's just go back there. Let's just see what it says. Well, here I'm gonna just look it up because it's there. It's gonna be about the marriage of it. So I'm just gonna look it up for a second.
What did David say?
He asked if he can eat truma, which I said I don't. I'm pretty sure he cannot, but let's just look it up. Can a halal eat truma? cannot eat truma. According to Jewish law, halal is the offspring of prohibited union. The status renders the halal ineligible for priestly privileges, including consuming truma. So the source is dafyomi.co.il. The Torah commands a Kohen Gadol to marry, not to marry a widow. An ordinary Kohen is permitted to marry a widow. The child from one of the above-mentioned unions is invalidated from the kahuna. The Rabbanon also prohibited all Kohanim from marrying a chalutza. A halal does not have the sanctity that a Kohen normally has, so he loses the privileges, but he also doesn't have the restrictions to a Kohen. He can't serve in the Beis Hamikdash. He cannot eat truma or the kachim reserved for Kohanim. That is a Mishnah in Trumos. He's not restricted. He has no restriction. He can marry a divorcee, and he can go into a cemetery. So he also loses the restrictions that go. So that it's not entirely a loss, but he loses that special privilege that goes to a Kohen. And here's the one about the divorcee. He prohibited a priest that he not marry a divorcee, and that is his saying, they shall not take a woman divorced from her husband, and each time he has relations with her, he is lashed. Okay. And then this is long. He prohibited the high priest from even marrying a widow. A regular Kohen can marry a widow. The high priest cannot. So he cannot marry a divorcee. He cannot marry a widow, which means that whoever he marries, it's the first time she's ever been married. And that is a saying, a widow or divorcee, etc. Moreover, he repeated the prohibition of the high priest with a divorcee, a desecrated woman, and a zona. Again, the category which we talked about before, literally a prostitute, but it means that larger category on account of the content that is written in Kedushin, Tractate Kedushin. And that is when it happens that the same woman is a divorcee and a widow, a desecrated woman and a zona. So you could have one woman who fits all the categories. If the high priest has relations with her, he is lashed 4 different sets of lashes. If he's an ordinary priest, he would only get 3. Because he is not forbidden to a widow. And there they said, a widow, a divorcee, a desecrated woman, and a zona, when they are in order, he is liable for each and every one. And they explained that that's with just one woman. And the matter of their saying in order is that they happen to her in order of that verse, that first she's a widow, afterwards she's a divorcee, after that she's a halala, and afterwards she's a zona. However, we required this on account of her being one woman and it being one intercourse. So there's one act, and he's going to be liable for 4 different charges, 4 different penalties, since we want to obligate him with 4 sets of lashes. The principle with us is that one prohibition cannot take effect on top of another prohibition unless it is more comprehensive. That's why they need it to be in a certain order. An additive prohibition, or a prohibition that came together with it, as we explain in various places in Kritot and our commentary on the Mishnah. So when they're in an order, each one of them will be an additive prohibition, as explained here. This is about being liable for lashes, It doesn't change the fact that he has violated more prohibitions. It just means that if you wanted to figure out a scenario where a guy could get 4 sets of lashes just by one act of intimacy, this is the scenario. But if there are several women, such as if he had sexual relations with a widow, with another woman who's desecrated, with another woman's divorcee, and with another woman's a zona, there's no doubt that he would be lashed for each and every one, because it's 4 separate women. But it is possible, you will ask, since it's a general principle with us that we do not give lashes for a general negative commandment, in what way can we give lashes for each and every one? Know that it is for this matter that the prohibition of a divorcee, a zona, a desecrated woman were repeated for a high priest, so that it would teach us that his law about them is the same as that of an ordinary priest, and therefore lashes for each and every one. Indeed, the ordinary priest is liable for lashes for each and every one on account of them being separated as separate negative commandments. We saw he just listed them as separated commandments, such that they were all differentiated. That is his saying, they shall not take a woman divorced from her husband. That since the divorcee was separated as a negative commandment, he is lashed for the divorcee on its own. And this is the content of that saying in the Gemara. Just like a divorcee, a desecrated woman, and a zona are differentiated for an ordinary priest, so too they're differentiated for a high priest. And there it is also explained that when women are different entities, for distinct women, he's lashed for each and every one, whether they're in order or they're not. Behold, it's already been made clear to you that the prohibition about each one of them is a separate commandment, and therefore he's lashed for each one. So this helps to explain why he's counting each one of these as a separate one, and just instead of just saying that there are several categories of women that a Kohen cannot marry, and then that would be one negative commandment. Each one of the categories is considered a separate commandment, and that's why he's getting lashes for each one. And there it is explained that an ordinary priest is not liable for lashes until he marries and has sexual relations. So, and they said, if he has sexual relations, he's lashed. If he does not have sexual relations, he's not lashed. So if he just gets married to her, but remains celibate, then he was not going to get lashed. The verse is saying, what is the reason? What is the reason of he shall not take, that he shall not desecrate, and the regulations of this commandment, meaning to say these 4 commandments, have already been fully explained in Yevamos and Kedushin. So again, it depends on the circumstances as to how many lashes he gets, but each one of these is a separate negative commandment.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
If a priest marries a widow, so he's forbidden from becoming the high priest?
No, it's weird that removal of status only starts with the children born of that union. The Kohen himself does not lose his Kohen status. Now, he could be penalized. The courts could penalize him and say they're not going to let him be Kohen Gadol because he flagrantly violated the Torah. But it actually
no, he didn't. He's allowed. A regular priest can marry a widow.
Oh, I thought you were saying a Kohen Gadol. I'm sorry.
No. I'm
No,
wondering if he could become a Kohen Gadol. I mean, like if
retroactively. Oh, yeah. So that was a discussion. We did have that discussion. And what did we say? He cannot. I'm fairly certain he cannot, but let's see what happens.
So
Is she like grandfathered in?
aspirations,
Let's see. Yeah, that's
if he
true.
has aspirations, he should make sure he isn't marrying a widow.
Right. Now, I
And the
say a million separations, but this would be like the difference between a cardinal and the Pope.
Right.
Lahavdil alfei avdalos, a million separations. All right, Kohen Gadol. All right, Kohen, who is married to a widow. I'm just gonna have to put a regular Kohen here.
I don't know how you become a Kohen Gadol. It's not in a conclave, I guess.
Well, it is. You are. It sounded like you're appointed by the Sanhedrin. It sounded like, but I also don't remember that. I remember all these being of interest when we were learning this stuff originally, over the years, and getting to some clarity on it. And I also remember forgetting everything that was the clarity on it. Can he become a Kohen Gadol. If a Kohen Gadol were to marry someone prohibited to him, no, that's if a regular Kohen married a widow and was then appointed Kohen Gadol, he does not have to divorce her. Talmud Yevamos 61, and this mitzvah applies. So that is 272. All right, let's see here. If the Kohen Gadol were to marry someone prohibited to him, he has to divorce her. If a regular Kohen married a widow and then was appointed Kohen Gadol, he need not divorce his wife. This is from the OU. This is Rabbi Jack Abramowitz. It's discussed in Yevamos 59a to 61a, and it's codified in the Mishnah Torah 17th chapter. And it's mitzvah 38 of the 248 positive mitzvahs of the Rambam. So in other words, he's not allowed to marry her, but if he was, it says here, I mean, obviously this is very brief, but this is from the OU, and it says, if a regular Kohen married a widow and was then appointed Kohen Gadol, he does not need to divorce his wife. So there you have it. And the discussion was when we were in Yevamos. It's not that long ago, but completely removed from my mind.
That's why you gotta do it every 7 years.
Right. It should be, you have to do it every 7 minutes.
It's funny.
There was a quote I once heard. There were these two brilliant rabbinical figures that were both rabbis in the same town. They were like world famous scholars. One was the Meshech Chochmah, I'll remember his name in a minute. He's also the Or Sameach, and I'll remember his name. Anyway, so there's the Meshech Chochmah and the Rogachover. The Meshech Chochmah was the Rav of like the Lithuanian, like the Misnagdim, and the Rogachover was the Rav of the Hasidim. And they're both brilliant. They're both like world-renowned scholars. So somebody was praising the Rogachover in front of the Meir Simcha of Dvinsk. That's what he was called, right? I don't know. Anyways, so in front of the Meshech Chochmah, they were praising the Rogachover for his brilliant mind. And he said, it's not that his mind is that brilliant. It's just that he studies all of Torah every day. So there's having memory, and then there's just having the ability to study enormous amounts of Torah every day. I did find, by the way, there was a period of time where I was on this program to study 18 chapters of Mishnah every day, which if you do 18 chapters of Mishnah every day, you finish all of Mishnah every month. And there are people that do this. Reb Ovadia Yosef famously was one of the people who did it. I think they said Rav Kook used to do it. Anyway, so there is such a program where you do 18 chapters of Mishnah every day, and you do it for 30 days. You finish all of Mishnah. So when I was doing that, I found that just because you're covering so much information, that it added a richness to like all my studies, because I had the information available. It was very briefly available to me. It was just like available to me for like a day or two. But like that day and then the next day, just the process of that. And I realized if I ever got stuck, like if I was on like at some resort and it happened to be filled with Torah scholars, that I would need to do something like that, like just go back to that, studying 18 chapters of Mishnah a day, just to be able to have conversations with them.
Do you think it prevents dementia?
I don't know, because I don't know.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I have met, yeah, I don't know. I have met Torah scholars with dementia, but
where they start to lose their,
right, because dementia, part of it is something's actually destroying, parts of your brain physically in dementia. It's not, so I don't know how that works exactly. I know that people talk about things that could put it off, but I don't know. I have met
when
people that were Torah scholars that had dementia.
When children are young and they play instruments, or as the younger you are, classical music, their occipital lobe in their brain develops more. So
remember, I used to read a lot of Oliver Sacks's books, and he talked about how there were people who had lost certain parts of their memory, but if they danced, if they physically danced, they could remember certain things. If they had trouble communicating, like if you played certain music, if you put on a headphone and you played certain music that they used to listen to, it seemed to suggest that it was different neural pathways or something. And there might be more than one way to get to that information.
Yeah, I believe in that.
Yeah. Okay. So then he prohibited. I'm going to pause here. I'm very grateful that we got to do all this and to learn together. It really does mean a huge amount to me. And I look forward to learning with you guys tomorrow.
No.
Told us
We're not.
No.
We're not learning tomorrow.
Didn't you send that you have to cancel because an appointment, Sippy? Isn't
Did I
that tomorrow?
say that? Sip, do you have an appointment tomorrow? Do you know of an appointment tomorrow?
We both, Liz and I got text from you saying you had.
You got a text?
Someone is pretending.
Oh, wait. No, I might have sent the wrong text. No, where did I say? 1 second.
Yes.
No, I sent it to
originally from Tuesday, the 18th of February.
18th of February.
And then after that, you sent the text of the 9 Jewish men getting arrested.
Wait, in my thing. Oh, I see. So I sent both of them to you?
It looks that way. But
how did that happen?
I don't know, but I'm so glad we're meeting tomorrow.
We're meeting tomorrow, and I'm glad
I told you I would be
it up.
flying tomorrow, Rabbi.
Yeah, okay. We'll miss you, but I'm grateful that I'm going to get to see you in person.
All right.
But you saw that thing about the 9 Jewish guys arrested for trying to smuggle a goat? They pulled a fast one. I didn't even think of that, to do it on Pesach Sheni. Because Pesach, they're waiting for those guys. They're actually there's Mossad guys or Shin Bet guys or whatever that are waiting for those guys. But Pesach Sheni, who would have thought? But they got caught. All right. Be well.